Cancer survivors of Reddit. What was the symptom that convinced you to see the doctor? Hello, everyone. Write your opinion on this in the comments and be well. Enjoy the show. Story 1, I was told I had an ovarian cyst at 32. My doc said he would do a needle aspiration to shrink it. Then he later said after that procedure it was the type to always come back, so he did surgery to remove the cyst. A few months later he said the cyst was back and I needed to have the ovary removed, so he did that surgery. Each time I was told it was not cancerous. A short while later, the town I lived in had a news story on that featured a new doc they had hired who was a GYN oncologist. My dad insisted I go see him. I felt it was ridiculous since I had been told 3 times it was not cancer, but he was so worked up and worried I set an appointment and was surprisingly told to come that week on a Friday and would be his last appointment for the day. My mom went with me as she was also worried. He had me come inside his office and told me he would be performing a total hysterectomy on Monday morning, and then samples from my abdomen would be collected many times when he washed the area W saline. I was dumbfounded and asked him what he was talking about as I knew I didn't have cancer. He said, "Oh no, you do for sure. I have wondered where you have been for months. I told your doc after I read the slide in the hospital you had a very rare form of ovarian cancer, and because he did a needle aspiration, he may have allowed cancer cells to escape." I think my original doc messed up and keep trying to correct the problem with telling me he messed up. I'm now 61 and have been cancer-free for almost 30 years. Story 2. One afternoon I finished peeing and afterward, looking down, I noticed the water had a pink tint. No pain, nothing. Went to a local urologist who set up some simple tests. My left kidney was completely eaten up with cancer. Except for that pink water, no other symptoms. Had surgery, no more problems. Story 3. I was putting on my bra one day and felt a lump the size of a golf ball. Freaked out and went to the ER. They did an ultrasound and said it was nothing but would schedule another ultrasound in 2 days. Did that one, and they said it was nothing. A couple days later, my doc called me because she saw that I had them done. She didn't trust the results and sent me to a breast assessment center. They did a mammogram and said that they would schedule a biopsy. Did the biopsy a week later. It was cancer. Within a month, it was the size of a softball and in my lymph nodes. Aggressive chemo, a double mastectomy, and a year's worth of maintenance chemo later, I am good. February 2nd, I was 6 years cancer-free. Story 4. My little brother was having night sweats, like soaking his bed bad and terrible pain in his pelvic area. The ER kept sending him home for like a month and thought he was a drug chaser due to his age, mid-20s. His blood work was all jacked up and still wouldn't take him seriously until his wife, who was a nurse at the hospital, forced the issue. And then they found part of his pelvic bone eaten away due to acute lymphoblastic leukemia. He's now 3.5 years post-bone marrow transplant and traveling to Germany soon to meet his life-saving donor later this year. Story 5. I was 15. I noticed an article for how to spot skin cancer in 17 magazine, and one of the example photos resembled a beauty mark on my right shoulder. I brought it up to my mom, and she brushed it off and told me I was fine. At the time, my family doctor was someone I had seen often due to other chronic mystery health stuff, which I later figured out in my 20s. We went to him as a follow-up for that chronic issue, and at the end of the appointment, I asked him about the mole. He told me verbatim, "You're okay, that's nothing to worry about. Your mom is right. Go home and put some lotion on it and you'll be fine." I was 20, and I began having a weird itch on my shoulder. I thought maybe it was my new clothing detergent because I have sensitive skin. But after a week or 2 of trial and error, I didn't see any changes. I saw my mole was inflamed, I assumed from the itching, and decided to keep an eye on it. Every day for a week, the shape changed slightly. At first I thought I was crazy, but I took photos to keep track. On the last day I stepped out of my shower and I looked in the mirror to see blood. It had started to bleed, without much reason to. That night I made an appointment with a dermatologist, and within another 7 days I was admitted to oncology. It was 3 weeks before my 21st birthday. Turns out I had stage 4 melanoma. It took the top doctors in my state 4 years, 3 surgeries, a 2-year-long experimental infusion treatment, regular radioactive PET body scans, and every ounce of hope I had in order to come out on the other side. I'm very lucky to say I'm just under 6 years in remission and counting. Had my doctors caught this earlier, the cancer would not have migrated, and it could have been 1 surgery to be done. The treatment for removing skin cancer early on is fairly simple and regularly successful. Listen to your children, listen to your patients, listen to your gut. If something isn't right, that is probably because it isn't. Get checked often and wear sunscreen. Story 6. So painful headaches that I couldn't sleep. Eyeballs did hurt too. I had troubles with keeping myself balanced and bright light gave me a little pain. Stage 4 brain cancer, glioblastoma multiforme. There is no cure for that. Been 2021 when diagnosed. Almost 29-year-old now, but my time is running out. I feel horrible and hopeless. I just can't do it anymore. Story 7. I got sick one weekend. Fever, chills, swollen lymph nodes in my neck. By Monday I felt fine. The lymph node on the left side of my neck remained slightly swollen. Didn't think much about it until months later when I had a persistent sore throat. It didn't hurt much, just like when you wake up after snoring all night. You get a drink of water and the pain goes away. Except it didn't. So I went to an ear, nose, and throat guy who scoped me and said there was something going on there. So he sent me for a scan. Then he sent me for a scan with contrast. Then he sent me for a biopsy and I had throat cancer. A few months of daily radiation treatments and every other week chemo, and one last scan, and I was told the throat cancer was in remission. Yay. But I was told there is something in your lower abdomen that bears looking into. A couple colonoscopies and a biopsy later, and I had colon cancer. The throat cancer hadn't spread. It was just an independent development. The colon cancer was resolved with surgery. No radiation or chemo needed. Had several years of clean follow-up testing and all was well. Until my yearly fiacle showed a dramatic increase in my PSA, prostate-specific antigens, IIRC, went from 0.3 last year to 13.5 this year. That's a pretty dramatic increase and prompted a visit to the urologist. He found such a dramatic increase to be somewhat suspicious and ordered a retest. He also checked my prostate and found nothing unusual. The new test came back at 0.5, so there was nothing to worry about this time. But now it's one more thing I have to worry about. So if you've got some symptoms that can't be explained, get it checked out. It isn't always something to worry about, but sometimes it very much is. Edit. I just want to thank everyone who responded and wished me well. Moral of the story, get it checked. If the doctor poo-poos it, get it checked by a different doctor. Ultimately, what you do is up to you. But if you want to see you children's graduations and walk your little girl down the aisle and hold your grandchildren in your arms someday, just get it checked. Story 8. None. I went in for a hernia operation. When I woke up, there were a bunch of doctors standing around me looking concerned. They said there was a complications when they went in. They noticed my appendix about to explode, so they took that out instead. I thought that was a good idea and asked when they could fix the hernia. They looked at each other and said the appendix looked a little weird, so they sent it to the lab and they'd get back to me. Turns out it was appendix cancer. Story 9. My speaking voice dropped over an octave over a period of a few months. My ear hurt all the time. No matter what I drank, I constantly felt like there was something stuck in my throat. I was eating Benadryl every few hours, convinced it was allergies. Eventually, I was so hoarse that I could hardly do my job. Vocal cord cancer. Laryngeal. 2 years cancer-free. I did come out with a very 1940s Hollywood leading lady voice meets Janis Joplin. I actually kind of like it. And I very much like being alive. Story 10. Extreme fatigue. I'd sleep the whole night, only have to roughly an hour's worth of energy in the morning before feeling wiped from doing something as basic as eating breakfast. I had chalked it down to just having a lingering flu since the fatigue, dull body aches, and overall feeling of malaise felt super familiar. Yep, wasn't expecting cancer at all. ETA. For those who keep asking, it was lymphoma, but initial blood work didn't pick up anything alarming. A more extensive panel was ordered, and something obviously caught the attention of doctors. That time and I also underwent a CAT scan. Story 11. A fever of 102 to 103 for 4 days straight, extreme exhaustion, and then I started having terrible night sweats. I've already had 2 heart transplants, so I'm pretty used to toughing it out when I'm sick. I waited for 4 weeks to go to the doctor. The first doctor couldn't find anything wrong with me and said to take Tylenol for the fever. I had a weird feeling, so I booked an appointment with my old pediatrician, even though I was 19. After 5 minutes of looking at me, he felt my lymph nodes and down my spine and told me to go immediately to the ER. When I asked him why, he said just go. Turned out I had tumors in my lymph nodes, on my heart, and it had spread to my spine. Stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. My pediatrician saved my life. Story 12. Not my story, but my dad's story. About 25 years ago, my parents' best friend was in her 40s and dying of leukemia. They had caught it pretty late. My parents were both pack-a-day smokers at the time. They decided that they should make some changes in their life, quit smoking, and get some general screenings just in case. It turned out that my dad, also in his 40s at the time, had a pretty aggressive form of prostate cancer. He was lucky that he got checked when he did, because he probably wouldn't have lived to see 50 if he ignored it. They did surgery and followed up with radiation and chemo. He's been cancer-free for over 20 years now. So, to OP's question, there were no specific symptoms for him, just an introspective urge to not be in the same boat as his friend. Story 13. Not me, but my dad, and not quite related, but he had lower back pain, unrelated to the disease, and went to see the doctor. When he went, she did a checkup and told him, "That mole looks a bit odd. You should get it checked." Mole turned out to be Hep C that had caused cirrhosis on his liver, which had turned to cancer, and he had months to live. He went straight to the top of the transplant list and got a new liver. That was over 10 years ago. He's doing good now. Story 14. I was in bed and reached across my body for the covers. As my arm slid over my right breast, I felt a lump, but then told myself it was cold, so I was just feeling my nipple. Next night, same thing, so I spent a few minutes exploring it. I had just had a clean mammogram 4 months prior. I made an appointment with my primary care doctor to have it checked. She asked where I felt the lump, and I told her to check it out and tell me where it is. She found the same lump. Diagnostic mammogram saw nothing. Ultrasound found it, and they took a biopsy. That was just over 6 years ago. I had a lumpectomy and radiation. My oncologist did an oncotype test and determined I didn't need chemo, and gal, I teared up when he told me that. I try to encourage everyone I know, even males, that it's important to do self-exams. You need to know how your breasts feel so you can notice any changes. Mammograms may not catch everything. Story 15. My son, 4 at the time, had some leg pains off and on for a week, and later he was just laying on the couch not playing for a couple days because he was tired. We thought it was odd he wasn't acting wild like normal, so my wife took him to his pediatrician and they took blood samples. An hour-ish later, we got a call from the pediatrician and they told us to pack a bag and go to the ER. We found out he had leukemia after a lot more blood work. 3 years later, he finished treatment. Recently, he started having bone pains again, and we found out he had osteomyelitis. But after more scans, they found out he had also relapsed. We're a few days away from his bone marrow transplant. Thankfully, everything has been going well so far. Story 16, my vanity saved me. I had a lump on my outer left knee that I noticed if my leg turned a certain way. Saw my PCP who took x-rays thinking there was bone involvement. Sent me on my way and said that it was nothing unless it hurt me. A few years later, it had grown and was visible at all times. So I got a new PCP and mentioned it. They again thought it was nothing. Likely a cyst, they said. It didn't hurt. It didn't impact my walking, but it was ugly to me and I think my legs are one of my best features. So, I insisted. She humored me and sent me to an orthopedic surgeon. He joked about how he never gets anyone going to him to get pretty legs. I again insisted. He humored me with an MRI. His tune changed when the imaging came back. Was sent to an orthopedic oncologist right away. No biopsy before since all tumors just need to be removed. Initially, primary biopsy during surgery said it was benign. They plucked it out. Tumor the size of a walnut. Then full biopsy showed it was malignant sarcoma. Had to go back for second surgery to resect the whole area. My oncologist says my vanity did save me, and he tried to give me the prettiest scar he could. Story 17. This is going to sound crazy. I had a sore on my stomach, and whenever I had sun exposure, it would get red and itchy and then scab. I just thought it was an irritation, so I put it off. Every night I would have this recurring dream with someone telling me to go to the doctor and pointing at the spot on my stomach. So I make an appointment with my doctor, and here I had basal cell skin cancer. I was put on chemo cream that basically ate all of the bad cells away. My skin was like raw hamburger meat for a very long time after that. If it wasn't for that recurring dream, who knows what boat I'd be in today. Stay out of tanning beds, they are toxic and will give you skin cancer. That is a hill I am willing to die on. Story 18. Started having back pain. Figured it was from sitting around too much as I tend to drive a lot and spend a bunch of time behind the screen. Eventually, the pain got worse and I started to get pain in my abdomen. The pain got so bad that I was taking the max dosage of acetaminophen and ibuprofen just to get to bed. Stage 3B germ cell tumor. Spread all over, but I'm cancer-free now. Story 19. Unrelated to my cancer, I had a ganglion cyst growing to the size of a boba on my wrist. My mom was so grossed out she made me go to a doctor to get it removed. The day of the surgery, my doctor had me get a chest x-ray for some reason and didn't come back until a long time after. He canceled the surgery and referred me to my oncologist. After my chemo and radiation, it disappeared on its own and hasn't come back. In hindsight, My oncologist noted these were big symptoms that should have prompted me to go to a doctor, but I didn't. Woke up in the middle of the night drenched with sweat. My shirt looked like I had been standing in the rain, extremely painful and itchy eczema on my toes. I had chest pains because the tumor was growing and pushing against my heart. Story 20. Not me, but in a past life I was an oncology nurse. My first patient of my first shift was a guy with 2 young kids, mid-30s, who went to the DR because his shoulder hurt. He played tennis and didn't think anything of it. Did some physio and the physio recommended he see his doctor. He had stage 4 lung cancer. Never smoked a day in his life. Neither did his parents. Fit and healthy and active. He lasted 6 months. I was 21 when I first met him, and I still think about him now I'm 45. Don't wait on things that don't seem right or don't heal. Story 21. I didn't have any symptoms. I just had a spooky dream that I couldn't shake. It sounds weird, but it's the truth. My mom passed away in March of 2020 of cervical cancer. We found a diary of hers where she wrote in 2017, "I think I have cancer," but never went to the doctor to get it checked out because she was scared. Jump ahead a year, and in October of 2021, I had a dream that she came into my living room and sat on my couch. She had this large purple dot on the right side of her neck, and I said, "Mom, what is that on your neck?" And she looked at me and said, "Don't be like me. Go to the doctor and ask. It means death if you don't." I woke up right afterward. It was a weird dream, but I tried to just dismiss it. Something about it, though, kept nagging at me. So in February 2022, I finally decided that I needed to get checked up anyway, and made an appointment with my doctor for the first checkup I'd had in years. All of my blood came back normal. My urine was fine, too. The only thing the doc was worried about was my blood pressure, and my weight were a little higher than she liked, and asked me to make some lifestyle changes. The appointment was wrapping up when she said, "Well, let me just do a quick physical to say we've been thorough." When she felt my neck checking for lymph nodes, I saw her face change and she said, "You have a nodule on your thyroid. It's probably benign, most of them are, but I'm going to refer you endocrinology just in case." To make an already long story shorter, it was not benign. I was diagnosed with papillary thyroid cancer in April of 2022 and had a full thyroidectomy in May 2022, where they removed a 3.7 centimeters tumor from my neck. Been fine ever since, with no sign of cancer in the last 2 years. I'll have to have regular checkups for the rest of my life, though, because PTC grows slowly. The endocrinologist said I could have had it for 10 years or more. Now, according to him, I'm more likely to die from something else than I am from this cancer. Now, I don't necessarily believe in paranormal stuff, but I do not believe in it either. So did my mom come back in a dream to warn me about my tumor? Did my body manifest the dream as a way to let me know about the tumor because I somehow knew about it subconsciously? Was it all just a coincidence? I don't know, but I'm glad I listened to that dream either way. Story 22. I am incredibly moly moles and freckles. My daughter played soccer with a girl whose mom was a nurse. She came to practice really upset and told me that a mother of 2 came in and was losing weight and couldn't figure out how, as she wasn't doing anything different. She did have one mole that she knew she should have had checked, but never took the time. She was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma. I made an appointment immediately to get my moles checked. Fast forward to a couple years into getting miles periodically removed. A couple of mild squamous cell, but for the most part benign. One appeared on my neck that was odd-shaped with black specks. Called my doctor for a mole check. He insisted on removing one from my right shoulder first, as he didn't like the look of it. Typically, he called me after 3-4 days and told me I was good. Started to panic when after a week, his nurse called and told me he wanted to give me the results in person. First words out of his mouth were, "This is the stage of cancer that I like to catch this in." This was stage 1 melanoma. Within 24 hours, I had to turn my life completely around to have surgery the next day. Melanoma is completely preventable, but a particularly insidious way to die. Sunscreen can and does help. That soccer mom saved my life.